Okay, everyone. You are currently on mute. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. If there is an appropriate time, I will break into the presentation to pass those questions over to Jeff. Otherwise, we'll take all the questions at the end. That's about it, really. I will also be on mute. So if you have any questions that you need me to actually answer out loud, then pop a message in the chat box, and I can come off mute. I have builders in the house. The noise is excruciating at times. So, all right. This presentation is being given by Jeff Charrington, and it's on, well, I guess it's about the ASG Enterprise Orchestrator for providing DevOps value stream management. The session is 2AI, sorry, so please ensure that you put some feedback at the end of the session to help us with next year's GSE conference, to help us to understand what was interesting to everybody. Okay, I'll now hand over to Jeff.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zone from which you're viewing this presentation. I'm very pleased to have been invited to speak here at GSE UK. I had the great pleasure to speak last year when we were all able to gather physically. And I'm just as pleased to have the opportunity to gather with you virtually. As mentioned, I'm here to talk about DevOps value stream management using ASG Enterprise Orchestrator. I'm Jeff Charrington, Vice President of Product Management for the Systems Portfolio of ASG Technologies. If you're not familiar with that name, some of you may know us from the time when the company was Allen Systems Group. There was a change about 5 years ago, and there was a bit of rebranding. During the session, I do encourage questions. I much prefer for things to be interactive, and in our virtual world, we have to do more to make that happen. Certainly, the questions will be things that will inform what we're talking about, make it more real, make it more tangible. So let's start with value stream. As Anna was introducing me, I could actually see a slight hesitation as she came to value stream, because that's not necessarily a term that's particularly familiar in the industry broadly. It is something, though, that is gaining a great deal of energy and traction. To build the story, value stream was first introduced out of work that was being done at Toyota as they were working through lean management evolution. They were mapping what was happening on the assembly floor, looking for those places where there were poor handoffs, where there were incomplete linkages, so that they could then find ways to improve the overall flow of cars through the assembly line and deliver the value that a customer wants, that is the working automobile. Then in 2004, Bo Kite and Drew Locker applied that technique to office and administrative processes. And in that time and in that place, it naturally began to become part of conversations around the end-to-end value streams that deliver value to customers through the automation that we, as IT professionals, create and administer. So when we talk about a value stream, it is simply that. It is the end-to-end set of activities that are done from the point that there is something that a customer requires or requests, through all the steps that are required to fulfill it, to the point that the customer receives the good or the service that they want. Now, further analysis since 2004 indicates that there are two different types of value streams. There are the operational value streams, which is sort of the foundation where that term, that concept came from. which is the production execution of a process to fulfill a request. But they also identified that there are development value streams. And in fact, if you think about it, the same techniques, the same processes for looking to find where there are poor handoffs, where there are incomplete linkages, where there are inefficiencies in the development process can be treated in exactly the same way as it was in the physical assembly line floor at the Toyota plants now 30 years ago. Those are development value streams, and there's a very close alignment between the philosophies of DevOps and this idea of a development value stream. There are some thought leaders that we could certainly recommend to you for DevOps in general. If you've not read the books by Gene Kim and his collaborators, certainly recommend them. The DevOps Handbook is a great place to start. And in that, he says, in DevOps, we define the value stream as the process required to turn a business hypothesis into a technology-enabled service that provides the value to the customer. I think that's as well phrased as anyone could want. And if you think about the DevOps infinity loop or figure eight, depending on how you like to style it, you can see how that applies directly into what's being done. It is taking the 7 phases of DevOps that we might look at sequentially and ensuring that we have good coordination, we have solid communication, and we have what's needed from each phase of the process to proceed appropriately to the next phase. I was hoping perhaps some of our friends from CompuWare would be on the call when I was at GSE UK last year. I think we were adjacent in the vendor floor. And we've been working very closely with CompuWare. We have a very strong technology partnership around the things that we do in DevOps with them. We bring forward our products to certify for the CompuWare Topaz integrated development environment, because I did want to give them credit. This one visual that I'm presenting now comes from work that they have shared with me. And it's familiar to most of us. We've worked in the industry long enough that we've used these types of visualizations, flow charting from back in the early days of IBM through to the more contemporary standards. And it's on this then that we cast the idea of improving DevOps, increasing its velocity, reducing its error rates by applying value stream management. And this is based on what our customers have told us they find to be extremely important for them. DevOps was a term coined just over 10 years ago. The first DevOps conference was in Belgium in 2009. And certainly there was some discussion, there was some interaction around it through the first part of the last decade. But about 5 years ago, maybe 5.5 or so, it seemed like DevOps really began to gain momentum. Certainly there was a lot more thought leadership that was being published around it. There was a great deal more being spent by the enterprise around it, because it did help improve the delivery of needed new technology, new automation, to market more quickly than the traditional methods. It aligned very well with the agile methodologies that many enterprises were adopting. And as a consequence, now you'll find many shops, if not every shop, engaging with DevOps to some degree. And as you would expect in any situation like that, after having adopted a new approach or a new technology, things began to come forward as sticking points, as points of pain, if you will. And as we talk to our customers and the challenges they have with their DevOps, the things they bring forward are, of course, certainly in this time of the COVID pandemic, increasing workloads. Many of the enterprises have had to right-size through the course of the pandemic to ensure that they could remain viable. And even in a period of reduced workforces, there's a certain threshold, a minimum standard of work that must continue to keep the lights on, if you will, in the enterprise, to make things continue to function and to keep the enterprise poised for the eventual recovery. Now, that means that those who are still there are probably doing more, even though they have less help for that. There's certainly the issue of juggling multiple applications, which has multiple dimensions. Those of us who work with DevOps realize DevOps is a tools-centric ecology, pardon me. You'll still see the thought leadership and the industry analysts talking to it about remaining in a best of breed, mix and match, tool-centric approach for managing development. And we'll explore that a little bit more as we go a little bit further into this discussion. Equally, it's managing all of the applications, the new automation, the updated or revised versions of existing technology within the enterprise that have to be juggled across all of the different stages of the software development lifecycle. Add to that regulatory compliance, logging, and then the eventual audit analysis of those logs. New trends of technologies, whether that is digitalization of the enterprise or new techniques for managing security and the privacy of the data that's being handled. All of this comes together to make for a very, very complex set of circumstances to manage to achieve the DevOps outcome. And where the industry is struggling is that, as we have likely all seen at different points in our careers, a lot of this coordination, a lot of this management of activity between the different tools of the DevOps tool chain and the advancing of the different versions of new products or new technology that's being introduced is being handled informally. There are situations where the oversight for the entire DevOps process is being managed not from anything that is instrumented and capturing metrics or presenting them graphically, but through the manual capture of state change in Excel spreadsheets or different databases of informal types that are developed by the teams as they work forward. It becomes even more complicated in the large enterprise when you consider that the technology stacks don't stop simply with the distributed systems, the Unix, Linux servers, the Windows servers that may be in the enterprise, or with the virtual servers or app servers that may be in the enterprise, or even the cloud services. But many enterprises, and many of the folks I'm sure who are attending GSE UK will affirm, still depend on traditional technology. They depend on mainframe, they depend on IBM I, or what I grew up in my career knowing as the AS400. And so consequently, the new DevOps tools in the tool chain sometimes leave gaps that aren't well covered when it comes to integrating the contributions or the services from these traditional technologies. So what this led to then was a set of challenges in orchestrating the end-to-end DevOps value stream management that we felt we were uniquely positioned to be able to address. And that's why we brought forward the offering that we have branded ASG Enterprise Orchestrator. We actually were into the market just a little bit ahead of some of the branding that the analysts began to apply. Enterprise Orchestrator can very much be a synonym, if you will, for enterprise value stream management for the DevOps value stream. for that development value stream that creates the new technology that will automate the delivery of the operational value streams, if you will. And it's in this graphic that we begin to see some of the familiar, I hope at least to some degree, familiar tools typical of a DevOps operation that may be in your enterprise or you may be aware of in other enterprises. Things like Jira for the planning phase, Jira being the agile development management offering that many enterprises, including ASG, uses. GitHub for managing the source code and providing repositories that can be shared across teams. The many different products for Verify, whether it's on distributed systems with something like Selenium, or perhaps it's on the mainframe and it's verification of job control language, such as using our ASG ProJCL Eclipse plugin in a CompuWare Topaz IDE. We can go through the list, and in fact, I'll talk to some of these others as we go forward. The thing that ASG Enterprise Orchestrator provides that is particularly useful is it does create that single end-to-end view of the activity of all of these different disparate tool executions during the development process. It gives a graphical impression of how an individual execution for a DevOps delivery is proceeding, and it accumulates the logging so that there becomes a body of statistical metrics that can be used to help identify, as I said throughout this, those places where there are incomplete handoffs or ineffective handoffs, where there are production bottlenecks or issues that are adding to the time of delivery that can be treated. And it is a uniqueness as we come to market in a couple of areas that are material, and I think genuinely material to the GSE UK audience. The first is the ASG Enterprise Orchestrator does have the opportunity to manage and monitor the work that's being done on all of the enterprise technology stacks, certainly including the mainframe, IBM I. I'm muted by host, Anna. Anna, it says I'm muted by host. Can you hear me? Now I'm unmuted, I think. Can you hear me, Anna? Just a quick nod. Okay, thank you. I just saw a pop up there as I out of the corner of my eye. And for many end-to-end value streams in many enterprises, the mainframe or the AS400 may be contributing essential services. And the traditional, if we can call a segment that's maybe 5 or 10 years old, the traditional DevOps, to a large extent, has looked to exclude traditional technologies. Clearly, we embrace it. ASG Enterprise Orchestrator can execute jobs directly on the mainframe or on the AS400, as it can on any of the other platforms, and indeed even on cloud services. The other thing that we'll point out is here toward the middle bottom, is that we also have available through ASG a digital platform, a digitalization platform, ASG Zenith like the top of the sky, that includes a robotics process automation services. It's something that can be used to automate those parts of a process that are not easily accessible by anything other than standard keyboard data entry, character-based applications, which still persist in some enterprises and still do very good work. And those of us who work with the mainframe understand that there's still a lot of information that we can either pull from the mainframe through 3270 or 3270 panels or ISPF panels, or there may be particular points in a process where we need to have something done through a keyboard, whether it's through to the mainframe, to a legacy two-tier client server application, or even some of the early stage web applications, that they persist in the ecology. They're something that is part of what is needed to achieve the value stream that we look to achieve, but doesn't have an API, doesn't have web services or easy integration access. The combination of ASG Enterprise Orchestrator with these robotics process automation capabilities ensures that we can even include those perhaps less easy to integrate, perhaps we might even think of it a little bit more primitive in terms of user experience, applications and technologies as needed. So as we talk about the value stream management, the DevOps value stream management that we believe many enterprises are beginning to engage with, we recognize that there's a vast number of technology stacks of different types that have to be supported. And we feel like we support all of the major enterprise technology stacks, what you see there in front of you, the typical list of Unix platforms, certainly Windows and the application servers for Java and for .NET, VMware, typical ERPs like PeopleSoft, SAP, or Oracle. The thing I want to bring forward for this group in particular is please understand that we embrace, include, and have tremendous capabilities for ensuring that ZOS and ZOS applications are as readily integrated into the DevOps value stream as any other. Add to that with the capabilities we bring forward of best-in-class exception handling, reporting, and notification. We have a foundation of over 30 years in the business of workload automation, and we bring that experience and those best practices forward here. Centralized graphical management through a central console that allows for the opportunity to see a single instance or see the entire overall execution of all DevOps value streams that may be managed within the enterprise. Tremendous amount of integration with a growing list that we'll continue to bring forward. And uniquely in this particular space, the ability to go from being the development value stream manager seamlessly into becoming the operational value stream manager, wherein you need to manage not just a single long-running, weeks-long, months-long value stream, but you need to development value stream, but you need to manage the thousands of high-speed, high-risk, daily operational value streams that our development is designing to execute. We have a growing list of DevOps toolchain tools that we support, large ecosystem, containerization with Docker, web services in Amazon S3. We mentioned some of the application servers and database platforms in the prior slide. Some of the more typical DevOps tools that you'll hear about, such as Jenkins and Hadoop. But the thing that we'll also point out in the top right is something that doesn't get as much play as we think it needs to in the marketplace. And that is ensuring that we are providing the capabilities, observing best practices for protecting the enterprise security perimeter. Many of these activities, particularly as we pass out of DevOps development value streams and into operational value streams, require elevated credentials. To do the things that you would look to have the automation do, they may require elevated access to resources within the enterprise, whether that is having extraordinary authorities on the mainframe, having root access on a Unix or a Linux server for the needs of a bespoke application within the enterprise. Certainly, there is a certain amount of risk that's involved that needs to be appropriately mitigated. And that's one reason we do expend a good deal of effort and a good deal of investment to ensure that we're observing best practices for both the privileged access management capabilities that we don't look to provide ourselves. We're not experts in that area, but we integrate with the leading privileged access management or credential management offerings such as CyberArk. So with Enterprise Orchestrator, if we think about this from an architectural point of view, it becomes the one orchestrator to orchestrate all of your DevOps activities across all of your technology stacks, so that as each development value stream is being progressed, you have the capabilities regardless of what may be required, regardless of whether it is simply a internal client server application that's being developed or being revised and updated, or whether it is a much more complex hyper-cloud oriented application that spans the resources that you have inside the organization and those that you may be obtaining from outside the organization from cloud services. We do provide all of the appropriate opportunities for having an architecture that is fault tolerant and highly available. Certainly, as many of our customers have approached us, they look to have something that's available largely 24/7, as they have development shops that follow the sun. Just as we at in ASG have development shops here in the US and India and in Europe, many of our customers are the same. And so they need to ensure that they've got a highly available architecture available to present their DevOps value stream management capabilities to their end users. So, and I'm going to stop for just a moment here and ask, have any questions come in at this point? I'll just do a checkpoint here.
No questions as such, no.
All right, so I put everyone soundly to sleep. It's just after lunch your time, and I'm sure with a nice meal, people are sitting back. Having said that, your questions are still encouraged. Please, if you have anything you'd like to challenge here, please.
There was actually a question that's just popped up as you've woken everybody up. Why are you using Ansible and not Jenkins in one of the earlier flow diagrams? And I think this is where this is Harshit Vijay, yeah, he joined, I think, just a little later.
Sure. Well, certainly. Thank you for the question. And certainly understand you'll see Ansible here in a subsequent slide. We selected Jenkins simply because we were looking for something that was familiar to an audience that we were talking to, and that is representative, but not an exhaustive list of all of the different tools that may be used in a development value stream. We use Jenkins within ASG. It's something that we're familiar with, but certainly we realize many of our customers also use Ansible. And then again, that is the value, that is the benefit, if you will, of having a value stream manager like an ASG Enterprise Orchestrator, because the value stream in DevOps is still part of a best of breed tools-oriented ecosystem. And so the top tool for a given use case within the overall DevOps workflow may change from time to time, or there may be matters of taste or executive leadership that come in and say, let's not use Jenkins, let's use Ansible. And so this is another point to make about the benefit of a value stream manager like Enterprise Orchestrator, you can easily swap those out without losing all of the metrics that have been collected to help you understand how efficiently your DevOps value stream is executing.
Yeah, so I think it was about a previous slide, a couple of slides back, where you'd actually used Ansible and in your flow. Yeah, even yeah, here. So you had deploy as Ansible, but really that's just an example of a product, wasn't it?
It is. Yeah. And you know, this is work that my marketing people do for me. From time to time, I have to go back and double check that they haven't moved one thing left or right and put it in an incorrect position. So I certainly will double check that. But I do ask the questioner to hold the thought, because we're going to come to our roadmap, and you'll see Ansible right there.
He has replied with a thanks.
Well, I thank you for the question. Gosh knows, the people who work with me know I say constantly, there's nothing more boring than for me to listen to myself. I'm far more interested in what you think and what you have to say than what I have to say. So questions are certainly encouraged. A couple of the closing thoughts that we'll have. We may be wrapping up a little bit earlier than the fully committed hour, but if we do, I'm sure nobody's going to object to that too greatly, and certainly I hope there will be some questions at the end. It's also important to convey that as we bring Enterprise Orchestrator to market, as we have customers now who have licensed it over the last 2 years, it's informed by that very deep history we have in the workload automation segment. And what that means is that you find that Enterprise Orchestrator is fully mature in terms of all of the different characteristics that are relevant in terms of both the administration and the operation of the value stream manager itself. There's a complete set of capabilities for doing rules-based dependencies, calendaring, as that can become appropriate in some situations, even in DevOps development value streams. The opportunities for doing your process modeling in a graphical whiteboard environment that can be online and can be shared, full and robust capabilities for alerting through various media to ensure that there is no opportunity for a value stream to become blocked or stuck and not be able to proceed without it being known. There's a whole host of capabilities here that by itself we could speak to for a great deal of time. It is something that we believe that, again, sets us apart compared to those who are also in this space, who perhaps started from a different direction without the deep history in workload automation that we have, and are approaching or are beginning to engage with all of these varied needs and building them from scratch, whereas we have them already available and fully tested, fully proven in the marketplace. A couple of closing thoughts to give you some idea. The Orchestrator does provide a rich set of graphical interactions with statistical data. We talked about that as being one of the key benefits of adopting value stream management for a development value stream. It is this sort of information that can be used to make informed decisions about how to improve your development processes. And it is this sort of graphical drag and drop user experience that informs how the different value streams, be they development or operational, are configured, showing their various dependencies, their various conditionality, and the different paths that a given instance might take from beginning to end based on its unique circumstances. We do have a rich body of support for the underlying technologies that are necessary. We support both the commercial databases for backend as well as the open source PostgreSQL for backend for those who want to adopt that as their foundation. And I hope the animation that marketing was supposed to put out, and indeed it is. In terms of single sign-on, I spoke earlier about the importance of having best practices for data protection, data privacy in place. We do support the OAuth standard, and we will be supporting SAML 2 here within the next short number of months as we release that in 2021. We already have integrations with CyberArk, HashiCorp, which I understand is very popular in Europe, and Thycotic, and we'll be adding to that list as we go forward into 2021 as well. Actually, this is a very useful graphic to give some idea of the ease of use that we provide with all of the capabilities that are built in out of the box with ASG Enterprise Orchestrator. There are already tailored integrations with things that are typical needs within the enterprise for both their development and their operational value streams, including things such as Jira, you see Informatica, Cloud, SAP, ServiceNow, which is frequently used. And the user experience is very typical of any sort of a contemporary application. You see interesting things here about all of the different options for integrations, whether it's applications, whether it is with databases for submitting SQL entries or SQL queries, and the development list that is more typical of the DevOps value stream work. The things that you see here are also embracive and expansive of bespoke integrations for those situations where there's a need that we don't already have a tailored integration. Anything with an API can be integrated into one of these value stream management processes, anything with a CLI, and actually with the capabilities available from robotics process automation, even anything that requires character-based entry or character-based retrieval can be included. We have a rich set of different file management and file transfer capabilities. And we certainly don't want to walk away from this conversation at GSE UK without mentioning, of course, the integrations and tailored integrations with ZOS and with AS400 so that we can run jobs on those traditional platforms as well. We've delivered a lot of capabilities over the last year to ensure that we are meeting the best practices for this industry segment. I won't belabor those. This is available for viewing on our website, asg.com. And certainly if there's anyone who's interested, we'd be happy to make a proof of concept available to you for your enterprise. We do have good, strong testimonials from customers. I'm sure Rayleigh's will not be familiar to those of you in the UK. In the US, it's a well-known, very large retail group in the Western US for convenience stores and for petrol stations. They use it extensively and have been extremely satisfied with the capabilities that it provides to them and how it helps reduce the labor required to administer both their development and their operational value streams. In terms of roadmap, we have a very aggressive roadmap coming up for 2021. And it's here where I stand corrected to our question. Oh, there, Ansible, right in the middle. We have a cadence of continuous delivery releases once a quarter, at least 3/4 of the year. We'll be skipping December this year because we think everybody would just as soon skip the last few weeks of 2020 and get on to 2021. But if you don't see the DevOps tool in the DevOps ecosystem that you'd like to see here, certainly lift it up to me here in the chat or afterwards. We'd love to hear more about that. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of entrants in the DevOps tools ecosystem. We're familiar with many. I would be naive to say that we're familiar with all of them. And so we're always keen to interact with the market and understand what more might be needed and where there might be more interest. Certainly you see some that are familiar: Selenium, Puppet, Chef, JFrog, Kubernetes. These are all offerings that we can integrate now in a bespoke manner, for which we will be offering tailored integrations as we go through 2021. So with that, that's the last of the prepared material that I have for this session. Are there any other questions at this time? And I'm sorry, we cannot hear you, Anna.
Sorry about that. Ewan just put a question in the chat, but I have now unmuted everyone. Or sorry, I haven't unmuted. I've given you the power to unmute yourself. So if you would like to ask a question, you may unmute yourself and ask it. Otherwise, I will read the question out.
Hi there, Jeff, it's Ewan. So I've got a couple of questions here for you. So would you kind of outline for us that, I know you have touched on it in your presentation, the kind of the key benefits of AEO that an organization might see?
So we'll take it in two dimensions. Many organizations have adopted DevOps because they believe it allows them to get necessary new capabilities of automation to market more quickly than their traditional methods that may have been more aligned with waterfall approaches. Certainly, they feel like that there are opportunities available for continuous integration, continuous delivery, following a DevOps model that will do things such as automating builds every night, automating a penetration test every night after the build is complete, all sorts of different activities that can become more frequent, that it gives the opportunity to deliver better quality to market more quickly. The benefit of taking that approach of DevOps under the guidance of a value stream manager like ASG Enterprise Orchestrator is so much more of this capability gets not only automated, but it also becomes coordinated with whatever is happening upstream, downstream, or even side stream, and it becomes visible and metrics captured through a natural interaction with the value stream manager. Anybody that we would talk to, and I can absolutely anticipate there's at least a couple of folks on the phone who are familiar with DevOps and maybe work with DevOps every day, who say, well, you know, that just happens already. You know, it's just, you know, it's something that we do. And I'd encourage you to think about how you do it and how often there is somebody who is collecting information about the execution of the build sequence and taking that information and recording it into a spreadsheet. That's then going to be shared with somebody who's going to come along and go, well, here, let me grab the metrics from our penetration test or from our Selenium quality assurance tests, and bringing all of that together. There'll always be a point that somebody will say, well, the capabilities already exist within the tools. We just need to chain them together. We just need to build the things that let me write some scripts. That's what I hear most frequently. Let me write some scripts. And that is effective. I'm not ever going to resist that. But having been somebody who writes those scripts, I can tell you the minute I leave the organization, nobody has any idea what those scripts are or how they work or what they were meant to do. And that doesn't leave the enterprise in a good position to move forward and continue to achieve its goals as efficiently as it should. So we do encourage folks who are in their DevOps adoption curves to also take a hard look at including a value stream manager in your DevOps tool set. And we believe that that ASG Enterprise Orchestrator is the best application for that job. Ewan, did I get to the heart of the question there?
Yes, you did. Yes. No, it's I mean, it's an interesting take on automating DevOps in addition to kind of automating workflows, which I guess is where, or sorry, automating workloads, which I guess is where automation is kind of traditionally set. And this is a new element saying make your DevOps more efficient and more easy to trace across the, you know, that infinity loop by including automation tooling within your DevOps processing. Because I imagine a lot of people have not thought of that. They'll be looking at it one tool at a time and maybe less collectively as a set of tools and how they all hang together. You know, and I certainly know, having run some fairly large accounts for a well-known company that I know will be very familiar with, that you know, the effects of losing control of your automation through lots of, say, in-house custom scripting and things like that can be very, very painful on the operational management and future development, and can create a situation of technical debt that can be very difficult to come out of if you don't have it under control.
I think that's bang on.
And I had a second question for you, if I may, Jeff.
Please.
If an organization has already invested in some form of automation tooling, can they also benefit from AEO?
Well, that's a sort of a broad question. It's some sort of automation tooling.
Mm-hmm.
So
say for instance, they've invested in automation tooling on their SAP environment.
Okay.
Right. So they've automated parts of their infrastructure, but not necessarily the entire value stream.
Sure. So that's an excellent question, and it does speak to the heart of a reality that needs to be recognized by any value stream manager that an enterprise may think about adopting. There are going to be pockets of very good, very sophisticated automation within the overall value stream, whether it's development or operational. There's no reason to think about trying to commit the detailed workflow oversight of a daily build process into the value stream manager, because that's going to be the responsibility of your Jenkins or your whatever your build tool is. And it will be very sophisticated and very tuned to that particular purpose. That's where the integration occurs at the level of delegation. The value stream manager simply delegates the responsibility for managing that to the particular tool, while still retaining the oversight of collecting the start, stop, and any exceptions that are recorded by the tool in the execution of its design purpose. You mentioned SAP. If we turn from a development value stream to an operational value stream, that's very typical. That's a very typical question in the workload automation world. Gosh, I have SAP. I have Redwood automation within SAP. Why in the world would I ever need anything else to do any sort of workload automation? And that naturally leads to the question of, does SAP do everything that needs to be automated within your enterprise? Well, no, it's really kind of isolated to dealing with our finance and inventory. Okay, so if you take a look at your value stream, your genuine value stream end to end, what are other things that need to happen? and how are those automated? And very quickly there comes to be a question of, or a realization of, oh my gosh, there's a lot of things going on in this value stream that are coming from our own bespoke applications, or that we're getting from packaged applications on other platforms that aren't being automated through this use of Redwood on SAP. And the next comment obviously will be, they'll talk to their SAP Redwood people who say, well, we can automate the world. And I think they probably can, but those that I've talked to who have tried to do it have said it's not easy enough to make it worth the time and the effort. SAP and their captive Redwood workload automation, as an example, are highly tuned to work together, not necessarily highly tuned to be a expansive and technology embracing value stream manager or workload manager across the entire enterprise, across all the different technology stacks, across all the different packaged applications, and across all the different tools that may be used to achieve a particular goal. Did I get there on that one, Ewan?
Yeah, you did. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. I don't have any more questions for you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have some questions? Okay, it seems a little quiet. No one's tried to unmute themselves. So if that's everything, we can close the session now, if that suits anybody. Did you have any last words, Jeff?
Only to say thank you to you and to everyone at GSE UK for the opportunity. I greatly regret that we could not meet in person. Very, very pleased that we could meet here virtually. If you do have questions, you're free to push those to me through email. It's jeff.charrington@asg.com, or reach me through Twitter at jcharrington. That's first initial JCHERRINGTON at jcharrington, and would certainly love to follow up.
Okay, and everyone on the call, if you could possibly provide feedback. Perfect segue into the to the feedback slide. Excellent.
I was just waiting for the cue.
So this is session 2AI. You can either click on the link in the bring your own agenda, or I think you can get there from Attendify, or you can use the QR code, etc. So, or even using the HTTP address. So, yeah, please provide feedback. And yes, if you can also show your appreciation in a monetary format for charity. Normally we have good raffles and charity events when we're on the face-to-face, and raise quite a bit for our charities for that year. So National Health Service is the charity this year, and well deserving. So if you do want to give a few pennies or dollars, they will be greatly appreciated. Okay, thank you very much.
Cheers all. Take care.